All right, everybody. We appreciate you joining us once again for this another episode of the Jaggernaut podcast, where me and my brother attempt to make sense of all that is Jaguar related. And
Duval.
so this episode comes right on the heels, hot and heavy after the cuts have we've gotten through the preseason, and now the cuts have manifested themselves. And I guess we're going to discuss the roster, the 53-man roster as it exists on Tuesday, August 31st. Brother, what say you?
Well, I can see one name who didn't get cut, who basically pisses me off. It leads me to
By
believe
whatever do you mean?
that these guys, they don't know what they're talking about. So, I mean, honestly, I don't know what to say. I don't know how you don't cut his ass. And in case anybody hasn't ever watched our podcast before, it's Tavon. I'm going to say it right, Brian. Dude's been 3 years on our team. He's been garbage. I mean, hot garbage with butter for 3 years. And instead, they waived Doug Constant. Doug outplayed him last year. I didn't see anything in the preseason where Bryant did anything. So I'm not sure what they're going on. He hasn't been in camp, so he hasn't had reps. So it's not, well, he must be a practice guy. No, that's bullshit. The guy can't play. He's a first-round draft pick. That's the only reason we're keeping him. That's the only reason he was on our team last year, and it's bullshit. You keep the best players.
Well, I mean, I know why they kept him. They kept him because of the fact that this is what coaches do. Coaches have a massive ego, and they think that under my tutelage, I can turn this guy into a player. And, the word on him and this is the problem, he needed to be cut. The word on him is exactly what it was when we drafted him, and nothing's improved. Well, at least I don't know enough to know that the idea of him coming out of Florida was that he was massively strong, but didn't know what to do once he didn't actually make plays. I kind of vaguely remember the fact that he wasn't like a giant playmaker. That didn't seem to bother me at first because he's a defensive lineman, but when you watch the guy play, you could see how strong he is. He has a tendency, sometimes he'll take a grown NFL guy and move them. So I see it, but then once he did this last preseason game too, by the way. It was typical Taven, where he just moved somebody right out of the way, got right, he penetrated great, and the running back just went right around him like he had no clue where the running back was. And he does that all the time. It's like,
but that's him. That's what he always
never
does.
makes a play.
He'll miss a tackle. He'll get back there and he's looking. It's like the play had just gone by him, just slightly. And it's going to his left. He's looking to his right. I'm telling you, man, he doesn't have the brains for football. And it's stuff like this that bothered me with the last regime. We changed regimes. All you hear from Urban Meyer is that the best people start. I can tell you right now, I feel lied to, because the best guys aren't on this team. And that's where this starts.
Well, it's kind of weird too, because they kept a lot of defensive starters. So the idea that they didn't keep Costin was an interesting thing. And what do you make out of the imbalance? I've never seen anything like that, where 21 offensive players.
So I was listening to Frank Frangie and them on the ride to pick up Elizabeth after school. And you know what? I don't care. I don't think it really bothers me. I mean, you have 11 starters, right? So you're telling me that, well, why do we need this 25 and 25 and then 3 special teams guys? You don't. One or two here or there, okay. But honestly, do you need more than 3 running backs? Maybe maybe with an injury, but you don't technically, unless one of them's a good special teams guy, you don't really need them. Now, I personally feel like they kept the wrong third running back. I thought the other guy outplayed him. I thought he looked a little better. Um, but that was just, yeah, a Zigbo. I thought he played pretty well in the last preseason game. I thought he showed some quickness. I thought he showed some power. So I thought he definitely played better. But then again, this is where I say, well, I don't get to see practice. Maybe he got outplayed in practice, and that's possible. I don't get to see it. So with that, I'm okay, because I don't think we have a large enough actual active playing time from the basically the third and the Zigbo for me to rank them and say, okay, who's better than the other guy? Does that make sense? So that doesn't bother me. Same thing with the receivers. How many receivers do you truly need? In case of injury, you might want to have some sitting there. But ultimately, I think if you remove injuries, or injuries that basically you can't predict, I don't have an issue with it. We slept on these. Let's roll those boys through. I mean, if we're gonna keep Opie, Taven Bryant, at least make sure we can rotate him so that he's not always in, so that we always have fresh bodies. To me, that could be the thinking.
Yeah, but wouldn't you think that wide receivers at some point, I mean, and running backs, and I grant you the running back scenario there, but wide receivers, I kind of feel like they're always running routes, no matter, what it doesn't matter whether or not they, especially with today's NFL where you're running three wideouts. What do we have? And Agnew's not, I mean, you don't really even consider Agnew a wide receiver. So, I mean, what do we have? Five? What do we even have? Yes. Five wide receivers?
Yes, I think we have 5 wide receivers.
Well, I mean, to me, that seems really light. I was actually expecting them to keep 7. And
so, I mean, it does seem light, and I'll give you that it seems a little light, but I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Now, this could be where we kept who they liked or who they thought should make the team, obviously. And maybe what we'll do is we'll trade 1 or 2 of these defensive guys. We'll waive them and pick up somebody else's discarded players.
Well, there's no question about that. I tell you what, I'm not too worried about, the cuts right now. I agree with you on that, but I would be really worried if they didn't begin, if this wasn't a foundation for some sort of idea of bringing, especially because the understanding is that we're number 1 in the waiver wire. So basically whoever gets released, I'm not really sure how that works. I actually heard somebody say that, we can pretty much like pick and choose, like it isn't a scenario where you just get one guy. Like, I guess you can bring a wave in. I'm not sure how that works, but so the point being, though, it's an opportunity to be able to pick the discards. And in fairness, you're not going to get superstars probably. I mean, obviously they wouldn't be being released by the teams if that was the case, but we are talking about a bad roster or a roster in need of a lot of repair, and we're talking about the bottom end of it. So,
and that's another thing. When he came in, they worked on defense. I don't think they did a lot on the offense, right? So they kept these guys on defense, and they're expecting the churn, I think, to be on the offensive side of the ball. So even if we go in a little light from what everybody thinks, I think it's fine because we're going to have massive turnover there next year.
How does this work for the complexion of the complaint that we had through the preseason games, where there's this concept of, well, we really didn't show the offensive playbook? Because to me, this sort of, it flies in the face of that a little bit, because, you are talking about your offensive starters, but the point is that they sort of have given this impression like there's this grand playbook they're keeping close to the vest, and then they release a ton of the people who would have been running that in practice. It just makes me feel like less and less likely that there's this playbook of any renown
because
there.
there
You
isn't.
know,
There
they
isn't.
don't trust the players that were running the playbook. You know, or is that what it is? It's like, oh, our playbook's so great, and yet when we looked at these players, they didn't
Man,
execute it.
it's
I
hard
just,
to tell. It's hard to tell with coaches' ego, and offensive coordinators have that ego too. It's my system.
yeah, but remember, when we first talked about this, one of the things that we noted when we went over the coaching staff was that the word was that Bevel was brought in to run Urban's system. And so it isn't so much, so it wouldn't be, I would just correct you just on that point. It wouldn't necessarily be Bevel's ego in the sense that it's his system. It's more Urban's ego, I suppose.
which is possible.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to read. I'm not going to read too much conspiracy theory into this or anything. Um, I don't think there's a grand playbook. We talked about this the last time. I think they were stupid for holding it back. I thought they should have did more bootlegs. They should have did more short passing, more shotgun things, more things that Trevor did here or there to give him success. I don't think they should have held all that back until the last game. So I don't think it was a coincidence that when they decided to do that, all of a sudden he started to look decent.
Yeah.
So again, with going back to the cuts, I don't have an issue with it. I don't. I mean, there are some guys who I don't understand. I thought Jeff Cotton Jr. I thought dude played well. Now that doesn't mean we won't bring him to the practice squad.
Right.
So he was waived, so he could go to the practice squad, but I thought he played well. Same thing with Doug Costin. I would have released Taven Bryant and kept Doug Costin, but he got waived. That means he's eligible for the practice squad, so it doesn't mean he's gone. Colin Johnson. I thought he played well for us last year when given the opportunity.
I'll tell you somebody that surprised me was Jalen Camp, that they released him. This idea that if you just look at it in terms of Taven Bryant being kept, this is a guy they didn't even draft, but they're going, oh, but we can unlock his potential is basically what they're saying. Well, how does that not apply for Jalen Camp when this is a guy that I don't remember what the position was that they drafted him. What was it? Fifth or sixth round?
It was late.
Yeah. And I knew like Amato Bebe, like I called that early on that they were going to put him on the practice squad. Like he went IR or something, not practice squad. He went IR. So, I kind of looked at that as a jar on the shelf scenario.
But why not Camp too?
Yeah, that's the thing that's a little bit strange. I wonder if it's one of those things where, maybe what you saw on tape just didn't translate. Sometimes that happens. They bring them in and they go, "Nah, this is what we thought we were drafting."
A lot of Jalen Camp. We didn't see a lot of Jalen Camp in the preseason.
Well, I did hear good things in the practice, though.
And that means nobody else did. So you bring him in and you give him another year on your practice. That's why, even though I disliked one thing, I think the rest of it, we can move and keep them on the practice squad. And we can still, I would be surprised if Jalen Camp, Constance, Cotton are not one, two, or all three of these are not on our practice squad.
Well, the practice squad is going to be big, and it's going to be filled by a lot of the people that it have to be filled by basically everybody that they release to a certain extent. So, because you can't go and grab, well, I don't know how that works. If they're on waivers, can you grab them and put them on your practice squad?
No. If
Okay.
you get them off of waivers, you must sign them to your active 53-man roster.
Yeah. And see, I could see, and that's the only thing with Jalen Camp. It's not to go, oh, I can't believe that he's not talented enough to make the roster. That's not my point. My point is, I can't believe that they think that another team wouldn't go, oh, we thought Jalen, we were going to take Jalen Camp, and the Jags took him around before we did or something, Yeah, we'll take
Colin,
this guy. We'll bring him on our roster.
who did that? The Packers did that with Alan Lazard.
Yeah, right. That's
So,
true. Now he
so
was on our practice squad for some point in
for
time before they did that. And that's the
so
thing too, it's like at
but
any
it
point in
happened.
time they can take this guy, even if we put him on our practice squad.
That is true.
And it's not like, and that's the thing, we don't have this wide receiver core. So it's going to be interesting to see what
We can do
happens.
that too.
What's that?
We can do that too. We can snake players off of other teams' practice squads.
I agree, but you're also, again, I'm just looking, let's see if I don't know, like Tavon Austin first of all, he got hurt in camp, and evidently it's not too bad. He's questionable for week 1. So we kept a guy. So let me see, did we keep Terry Godwin? No, he's on injury reserve. So we kept a guy that may not be available for week 1, and we released a guy who was somebody we drafted. And I'm just wondering, like, Tavon Austin, as good as he looked for us, I'm confused in this respect. This guy's been around the league, and other teams had opportunity to get this guy. I don't think that I would be super scared that somebody, in other words, I see a team going, I'll take a flyer on Camp, but we've seen Austin before. Heck, he's been on 4 or 5 other teams, I think. So they probably are out of the question. You've already process of elimination right there. I guess that's my biggest surprise. If I'm surprised by anything, it's Jalen Camp.
Well, but again, remember, if they sign this dude off our practice squad, they have to put him on their starting 53. He doesn't have to be active on game day.
But most teams run with 6 or 7 wide receivers. So that's not a big deal. We're the oddballs where we're running out 5 wide receivers. So that's the thing and again, that I'm not saying that that's the way it will be by the time we line up against Houston, but that's the way it is now. So, that's all we got to talk about.
Yeah, and I get that it's unconventional, but sometimes,
which may be good.
Sometimes the unconventional works. Now, I'm not like I said, outside of my Taven Bryant issue or hatred or however people want to say it. Outside of that, I don't necessarily have an issue at the moment. Like I said, I think that there are several people on our waived list that we're going to bring back into our practice squad. Yes, there's that chance that another team is going to swoop in and get them. But to be honest with you, even with Jalen Camp, and I thought Jalen Camp was somebody I was high on going into camp with, even if they come in and they take Jalen Camp, I'm not really terribly upset with it, for the simple fact of the matter is we haven't seen a lot from him. There's not a ton of tape on him. So whatever they've seen in practice. So these guys are going to have to go back to college and say, well, let me look at his college tape. He played in Georgia Tech. They don't really throw the ball a whole lot, which was sort of the knock on him coming out.
Yeah, but that was the knock on Calvin Johnson and Demaryius Thomas too. You find players where you find players. You can't blame them for their
situations.
Yeah.
No, and I get it, and I do, but that to me, it's the same thing.
And it was a late round pick. It's not like you drafted super high,
Again, it's the same thing with Jeff Cotton. I thought Jeff Cotton had the best preseason out of almost all of our wide receivers, not counting Marvin Jones.
Yeah.
Chenault, of course, was good. So, but right behind him is Jeff Cotton, but yet they waive him. So they're taking a chance that another team is going to come in and swoop him up. And I would be surprised if another team took Camp over Cotton.
I'll tell you one thing I'm curious about is whether or not we're going to see some players go on IR. They maybe that some of the guys that that are the vested veterans, because that was a good bit of our wide receivers that showed promise. The Laquan Treadwells and the Philip Dorsetts of the world.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Just a quick question. When we faced most other teams, 2s and 3s, which is really when we saw Laquan Treadwell and Philip Dorsett, right? Shouldn't a 6th or 7th year veteran beat those guys?
Yeah. Especially if they have speed, and Dorsett had that one game. I mean, he had the game last week where he did beat those guys, not soundly. I mean, it took good throws by Trevor to get the ball into their hands. So it wasn't, the speed that I heard about from Dorsett didn't jump off. I'll say that. And Laquan Treadwell, the one thing I did think about Laquan Treadwell was, to me, it was sort of this idea of whether we're keeping Colin Johnson or Laquan Treadwell. And I saw Laquan Treadwell make a good play on special teams. And apparently that's really supposed to be one of the focuses of Urban Meyer. So, that was a little surprising because I thought Laquan Treadwell might have made it
Special
just
teams
based
value.
on that alone. I don't know, but I agree with that. And that goes back to my concern when I started considering the fact that when you consider Philip Dorsett, Laquan Treadwell, and Austin, and not even counting Divine Smith, or Devon, whatever that guy's name, the one that caught that one catch, he doesn't really count into this mix. But those 3 guys they were talking about how great they looked in camp. And that was concerning to me because I'm like, well, what are the odds that 3 guys who haven't been able to figure it out in our camp? That doesn't bode well for the secondary in my mind. Now, in fairness to the secondary did get moved on, or they gave up plays, but it didn't feel like last year's and the year before secondary. The secondary people appeared to be in position. They just didn't make the plays, which regardless, the point's the same, I suppose, but
and that's why we should cut
basically the same.
Tavon Bryant. It's a cancer. He has infected our secondary.
They're not making plays.
Yes.
They're there, but they're not making plays. I can't argue with that. That's a fair analysis.
I agree with you, but again, those guys got cut. I saw Taven Austin, no offense, but I saw him all over the place. He really was kind of all over the place and I think at least all of those games.
Yeah, and they kept him for that reason. It looks like he's the one guy, and if there was a guy that jumped out as being able to help carry some sort of percentage of the load that they had considered to give
for Travis
again,
yeah,
it would have been Austin. So
yeah, so
that
does
makes some sense,
yeah. So
it makes me wonder. We'll be looking to see who are they going to get. Who's out there. That I know the Dolphins, I think it was, released a linebacker. I forget, Barrett. He used to be on the Texans. I can't remember if that's his name or not, but that's somebody that I wonder if we'll go get, which is interesting because I'm focused on the offense based on the amount of people that. Oh, you got me off my train of thought. I was going to say this because the vested veterans that we released, they're not on the waiver wire, and these are guys that Dorsett and Treadwell.
Right, he could be signed,
guys, because nobody's going to be interested because they've been around forever and nobody's been interested but us.
Okay.
That being said, if you get, I think maybe tomorrow the technically the regular season starts. So if you IR somebody, you can then designate them to be able to return. So you sort of get a bit of a position there. And I'm wondering if there's some guys that are technically on the roster now that, we'll find out tomorrow they're on IR, like Tavon Austin as an example. I mean, maybe they'll keep Austin, put him on IR because I don't know what his injury situation is actually. I've never heard anybody talk about it. Once he got hurt, nobody said anything. So you could put somebody and maybe another person on IR, and then these guys that you thought were cut yesterday come back on the squad after all. So
yeah, I mean, if they want to keep them, they'll keep them and they'll find a way. Whether it's by hook or crook, they'll find a way. I mean, and that's just the deal, that if they like you, they'll find a way to bring you back and keep you. I think for the younger guys though, like I said, I'm not freaking out because we do have the practice squad. I think a lot of them will make the practice squad. We'll see a lot of them back. And then that'll give them another camp, that'll give them another year. And then we can see if we can develop them. That should be where we are developing players. So was there anybody else that jumped out to you? Like I saw that we released Quincy Williams. Yeah, I think we had a short discussion about him when we were going over the linebackers. Never really did anything. In fact, I think you said he was the wrong Williams, right? Like we should have got his brother or something.
It's our MO. We had Cam Newton's brother, Aaron Rodgers' brother. We always get the wrong brother.
Yeah. And then did you see that we released Gerard Wilson?
Yeah, that was a bit of a shock because doesn't he play special teams? I thought.
Well, I don't know, but I know Rudy Ford played pretty well.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised we kept Ford.
And Ford is a special teams ace, apparently. Yeah, but then we moved Josh Jones. We moved him to injured reserve, but his season's over. So we're not getting any help from him. So I was a little shocked, but that definitely clears up our secondary. I mean, our safeties.
Yeah, the safeties were always going to be a mess to me. So I wouldn't have been surprised. I mean, I'm kind of surprised a little bit, especially with the amount of defensive players that we kept. We focus so much on the defensive line. It seems a little strange. I mean, we've got Daniel Ukwale. I don't even know. I don't remember his name. Here's somebody that jumped off at me Aaron Patrick. We kept Aaron Patrick. And I'm not trying to be negative, but man, that guy seemed like a stiff to me. He's a big guy. He looks like he's this athlete and stuff, but I mean, I watched him play. You want to talk about the opposite of sudden. He just looked very lethargic to me.
Well, what position? I don't recall his name at all. So
I saw him. They've got him. Well, he looked to be playing defensive end, but I guess having said that, we are in a 3-4. So they have him listed as, where is he at? They have him listed as weak side linebacker. He's backing up. So they got Josh Allen, and then they have Jihad Ward as his backup. They have Caleb Chase on as the strong side linebacker. I'm surprised by that, to be honest with you. He doesn't deserve that to me.
I didn't see anything from him either.
No, but I don't know.
Unlike Tavian Bryant, he never even got close.
I saw one play, but I mean, it's difficult because the problem with him is that he's a first-round draft pick. This is his second year, and we thought this would be more the type of scheme that would fit him.
I don't know if you thought that, but I damn sure thought that.
Well,
in our first podcast, I was like, yeah, this dude's changing back to what he played in college. He got better as the year went on, so.
And that's what I mean. It's not an illogical situation where, or position that you took there. And so there's no reason why I shouldn't believe that that's true, or at least give him the benefit of the doubt. But when you watch him, the problem is, and let me finish this. Most of the time he was against backups. So not only is it in a situation in which he should be in a better position to make plays than he was last year, it's even that much more because this year, for what little we've seen of him, has been against not the upper echelon competition backups. So what we should be saying is let's tamper it down those couple sacks because it was against lower competition. Instead, we're going, yeah, I didn't see anything from him. And it was like, that's against lower competition.
So my only caveat to that is no, we should not give him the benefit of the doubt. We've made excuses for every damn head coach we've had. We've made excuses for poor play on every side of the ball from every position. We've made excuses for anything under the sun as to a reason why we suck. We need to stop that as a fan base and as local media. We need to stop that. We need to hold these guys accountable. When they're not playing on the field, we call them out on it. And we say, look, you guys were shit. I don't care that Chark got hurt. I don't care that Marvin Jones got hurt. I don't care. You can't do that. You shouldn't do it, you know? So if Caleb on Chason doesn't get his shit together and he looks like he has these last 3 preseason games against 2s, put him on the Taven Bryant boat.
2s and 3s, man. That dude played late into the Cowboys game, man. I remember seeing him. I'm pretty sure I saw him in the 4th quarter, man. That's
if the only reason you're keeping him is because of where you drafted him, just come out and say it. He's a bust. He's not working for us, and move on. I mean, you don't publicly have to say that, but it shouldn't matter where you draft guys. You're going to miss. Chalk it up as a miss and move the hell on.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, maybe it'll be something where it'll come together.
I'm not saying he's a miss, but I agree.
Defensive scheme, they're keeping it close to the vest. As soon as they unveil it,
it's in the super secret vault. They're going to pull it out. They're going to pull it out.
As they unveil it, Chason's going to
watch out, Houston. We're coming.
Yeah,
we're coming with our top secret plays. We're going to unleash annihilation.
Special.
It's Herb's annihilation plan. It's coming. It's coming.
I mean, that's about all I've got to really. Nothing else kind of jumps out at me to discuss in regards to that. My thought was maybe we'll just sort of touch on what we saw from the last preseason game, since we have not talked since then, and call it a day after that. And is there anything else you want to bring up in regards to the roster as it sits?
No, I think we covered it all right. I mean, I gave my points, you gave your points. I will say that I don't really care how it breaks down. It doesn't have to, in my mind. I never really even looked at that, so I didn't know it should be half and half. You know, I mean, this isn't coffee creamer.
Close to it.
So, I mean, I personally, I don't care. I think sometimes people carry additional guys than they probably should, either because they think they're better than they are, or just in case of injury. Well, sometimes you can't always just in case of injury. So for right now, that was the only roster move that upset me, was one that didn't get made.
Well, think about it this way, though. Just to emphasize how unusual it is, and for that reason, I don't expect this to be the way that it looks, first week. That wasn't so long ago where you had the typical thing was to have 3 quarterbacks as on your roster. So, most teams have moved away from that. I think the quarterback's probably the least likely to get hurt. So, to that point, when you have running backs and you only have 3, I mean, it's not hard to imagine 2 running backs getting hurt in one game. It's, it could be anything, a concussion. I mean,
no, it most certainly can happen. It definitely can happen.
Well, even even think about this on the offense. We have a small amount of players. Forget the game. Forget even getting hurt. What happens if their best friend's niece's cousin was near a positive tested corona person? You know, maybe they have to sit out 10 days. You know, that's the way that it seems to be
Well,
working now. So
right. Well, before the game, I think you're fine. I think you can make your roster moves. You can do what you need to do before the game. It's really, for me, this 50-50 split really is about during the game. And not all of those guys are on the field or are active anyway. So you go in with what you go in, and it is possible that most teams just go in with an active 3 running backs. I'm okay with that. If you go in with an active 6 wide receivers or 5 wide receivers, typically, well, guess what? We got 5 wide receivers.
I'm expecting us to at least go out and get 1 or 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and maybe another running back.
I'm expecting us to make some moves. I mean, I think we will. I can't remember. Somebody got released today, a running back who was a rookie who I liked, who I thought played well for the team that they were on. Kansas City. There's a guy called Gore. And I thought he played pretty well just in what I saw. Now, granted, it was just a snippet in time. I don't watch Kansas City. I didn't watch Kansas City a lot this preseason, but I thought he played pretty well, and I was shocked to see that he got cut. But, yeah, I would be expecting some kind of roster changes. How many exactly, where, I'm not 100% sure. So I'm just going to wait on that. I don't think it has to be divided evenly. I don't think it has to be. I think it can be greatly tilted. If you got guys that just show up and show out, then, I mean, we don't have that, but I can sort of understand it.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of answers the point of how awkward it is, though, because you just said it. We don't have that. So, we just brought up people who we didn't. The secondary doesn't seem to make plays. Taven Bryant, Caleb on Chase on, and yet the defense is where we got all these players piled up. So it's
maybe that's why, because they all have that cancer. They all have been Tavian Bryanted.
So okay, the last game versus the Cowboys. There's some cause for hope there. It wasn't I mean, I don't want to sound down about it because I was so down about having watched the
Saints
game. Yeah, that was so, I mean, just after the Browns, it's like, my gosh, you guys cannot get up to just look like you belong in the NFL. At least there was that.
And truth be told, the real Jaguars lay between not looking like they belong in the NFL and looking like we did against Dallas. So don't get too high.
I'm not high. I'm not high.
Yeah.
But just I want to be realistic about it, though, because I can't say, oh, that performance against the Browns and the Saints was abysmal, and then not at least give them their due against the Cowboys, because there's certain things that I don't think are going to change that much. I mean, I think we do know, though, that the Cowboys, even their starting defense isn't that great. So we do need to throw that grain of salt on the performance that we saw.
Dude,
but it
man,
was
the
nice
national
to
media,
see.
national media love them some Cowboys. Man, you would think they're going to the Super Bowl the way they hear them talk, and they're not. Their defense is still atrocious. It's going to be atrocious. So I don't care that they went out and drafted rookies. You went out and drafted rookies. So that's my only warning. Don't get too high, don't get too low. I will take for this. I will see that when we got a short passing game, sort of a quicker, faster passing game going, I thought Trevor was right on the money.
Yeah, but the problem is that I think they tried that short passing game, and it fell flat.
I thought it worked just fine.
No, no,
I
no. I
mean,
mean the other two games.
no, but we didn't do the quicker passing games. We didn't do
Dude,
quick
we
slants,
hey
I
man,
don't
we it don't get much fast. It don't get much quicker. You need 8 yards. Let's throw it 4. Man, it's pretty
yeah,
fast.
yeah, I mean,
Those first 2 games.
okay, well, all right, well, what way to bring me back to reality.
Yeah. I mean,
But anyway, I thought Trevor was on the money. I liked a lot of his throws. I thought he put the ball where only our receivers could get them.
in fairness, Trevor has been good all 3 games in regards to the eye test. You got a guy, he's the most pivotal of prospects for our team, obviously, it goes without saying. So you don't want to see him not look the part. And even when the whole offense didn't look the part, you never felt like it was necessarily his fault. It always looked like, what the crap are we doing? There's always something going, no separation by the wide receivers, no blocking by the
Offensive line or running
line,
back.
no imaginative play calling to do anything to help the situation out. And he felt, you felt for him in that. So it's just nice to be able to see what you thought you saw in the first 2 games actually translate to some movement down the field. I do think that, it is possible we can beat the Houston Texans. But yeah, I mean, like I said, going in, it seemed like we can get that first game. Let's get that first game and get that under our belt, because the Texans are a dumpster fire. And then after that, we'll see what can happen. Maybe we can sneak a couple wins under our belt before we really start hitting competition, before we learn how to start actually playing, and before the team gels. But those
Yeah,
first
and
2 preseason games knocked me out of that. And now I'm like,
that's what I was trying to say. Success breeds success. So you got to find a small success if you're failing and start to work from there. You can't work from a position of failure. And that really was my issue, is I don't feel like the coaching staff helped put the players in a position to succeed in those games. So
close to the vest. It's close to the
yeah,
vest. The problem that I have with that, though, and I don't know if I brought this up before, but it almost makes you think like, that's not a good excuse, because that almost implies like we were doing that, but they weren't. Like, they were strategizing. Good thing we weren't, because we look bad. Like, no, they weren't either. That's the problem.
yeah. So we looked
Nobody
even
was
worse.
strategizing, and
Yeah.
you guys looked horrible. So if anything, it was kind of an eye-opening scenario where, you think you've improved the roster, and I guess that's where I'm heading. And then you go, ooh, man, that doesn't, and you can kind of see where it looks like you have improved the roster, which is the defensive line and the quarterback. Everything else, I mean, we drafted ETN. I never saw nothing from him,
Yeah,
So even though he got hurt, I
and that's
know.
what I was telling you about. Don't give him the benefit of the doubt, because you're right. Truth is that we're in the bottom third. We're going to be a bottom
Oh, there's
third
no
of
question
the
about it
league.
now. Yeah.
We can't hang with the Browns, but they're a potential and playoff team. We can't hang with the Saints, but they're a potential and playoff team. So Dallas, it's the only playoff team. It's the only team that we played this preseason that wasn't a playoff team, and we did good against their second. So that tells me I think we can hang with Dallas's first, which means Dallas is also in the bottom third. That's what I believe. So Houston's down there. We'll be down there in the toilet bowl with them. And week 1, it's a scrapper and the crapper.
Well, it's AFC South. I guess we're kind of used to that. We are Jag fans after all.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think it's promising. I just, don't believe the hype. Don't let yourself get hyped up. Understand that we're not going to be good this year.
Let's own it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. We're going to own not being good this year.
We gotta own it.
Because you kept Taven Brand.
All righty. I guess that
All
will
right, yeah, that's about all I got. Did you
end
see
it with
anything
that
else from the game?
exclamation point. We started with Taven, we end it with Taven. How
I
you
will
like
tell you
that?
though, I really do like the fact that I was able to have a few beers on Sunday and we actually did
circle.
something. So that was nice. I was happy with that.
All
Made
right.
me have
Well,
a good Sunday.
until next time, we will see you again, I guess. God willing.
Yeah. Oh, you missed it, but whatever. I'll
I'm
throw that
supposed to
out there.
jump on a train halfway through it.
Well, you do almost any time anyway. I thought that's our singing.
Duval.
There you go. All right, bye guys. Thanks for joining us.